everybody, to another episode of the TPT Podcast, the TPT Pachi Podcast, the TPT Podcast.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the TPT Chiefs Football Podcast. I am your host for tonight, Zachary Story. Jaden, he's not going to be able to make it tonight, so I'm doing a solo show. Just a short little show going over some news that have come out this week. And then our first show, or our last show before the NFL Draft that's taking place on Thursday. And so we're super pumped for that. And let's get into it. The first thing that we have to talk about is our extension of Andy Reid, Brett Veach, and Mark Donovan, our president. And it's just it's great news to hear, especially when it comes to Andy Reid and also Veach, that we'll have them locked down for a while. I mean, obviously Reid can retire whenever he wants, but signing a contract until 2029 shows some intention that he plans to be here for the next 5 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is his last contract ever in the NFL. If at 29, once that contract expires, he's done. But I'm fine with that. That's another 5 years that we could have the best head coach in the league and keep stacking them jewelry, stacking them rings. And so that's just great news to hear, during the offseason, especially before the draft. Everything gets very repetitive and redundant, and we just hear the same nothing stories where people are coming up with rumors regarding the draft and all that. And so we actually get some positive news where we'll have our guy for the next 5 years as long as he doesn't retire. And if he does, that's cool. He's gotten us 3 rings at this point. Hopefully we get a couple more, and then honestly he can do whatever he wants, and I do not care. So that's great news. Brett Veach obviously staying along as well is great news because he is the architect of this team, and he's the one that's been able to draft so well in recent years and stock up on picks and keep us competitive even when we have lost some of our best players. And so that's beautiful. I don't know much when it comes to Mark Donovan, like the actual operation stuff when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs Football Club. But if we win championships, I mean, whatever he's doing is probably good enough. I mean, I saw our report cards were like the worst in the league. So hopefully he can make our players and their families' experiences better when they're here in Kansas City because, obviously we win, but we want to be a top 2 organization all around. And so, hopefully this extension gets him to working on some of that other stuff that we don't do so well at. So enough about that. Great news, obviously. The next thing I want to touch on is a meeting that we had, or what is it called? A top 30 interview or meeting? I forgot exactly. But with Xavier Leggetti out of South Carolina, the huge DK Metcalf-like wide receiver that they have. Very fast. He runs like a sub 4.4, and he's like 6'3", I believe. And he's kind of rough around the edges when it comes to the other traits of a wide receiver, just like DK was coming out. But that's exciting because, we did draft Mecole Hardman over DK, and a lot of us fans wanted DK at the time because he was popping because of the pick of him with his shirt off and his 40 time and all this. And so maybe we get another shot at that athletic freak with Xavier Legette. And, I really do. I would enjoy a wide receiver round 1 just because I'm more familiar with the names that are at wide receiver. I don't really watch as much tackle tape as I do wide receiver tape. And obviously we could still use an edge guy or an interior defensive lineman. And so I'm happy with wherever we go, but a wide receiver would be great. Now, do I want Legette to be the pick at 32? I hope a higher level prospect does fall to that point if we're going receiver. I doubt a guy like Brian Thomas falls, but a guy like A.D. Mitchell could fall, and that would be beautiful. Troy Franklin's mocked in that range. I'm not as high on Troy Franklin, but he did have production, and that's one thing that we want from our prospects is that they actually have been good at football in every level that they played at. And so, honestly, wherever we go, I'm just excited to hear the name and to finally get into that season where I can start hyping up these guys. As far as it goes with round 2 and round 3, I'm not as particular. I want to get a good interior D lineman to team up with Chris Jones because I know we re-signed Noddy and we sign Pinnell all the time, and we have depth at that position, but we've never had that number 2 guy that really like is a threat in his own. Everyone has just been on the interior has been leeching off of what Jones has been able to do, which is fine. But in the draft, we have a chance to really get someone that can make some damage and make our defensive line even more dangerous. I mean, it's already consistently top 2, 3 in the league in sacks, without really having a guy outside of Jones that is you can't leave him 1-on-1. That doesn't exist on our line, and so I would be excited with that, and I would be cool with a tight end as well, like a guy like Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. I've seen mocked to us a lot. Particularly, I mean, Veach likes to draft these guys that are local. He got Felix Anudike, he got Nick Bolton, and so he does like those K-State, Mizzou, KU guys. And so we'll see if we get a guy like him. Another tight end guy is JT Sanders out of Texas, horns down. But wherever we go, at this point, I do not get too hung up about where we go with the drafts, because Veach has always come through, at least in his last 4 drafts especially. Have just been banger after banger. Like, we're consistently having one of the top 5 classes in the league, despite having consistently the worst picks in the league, at least based off our record. And so, nothing to complain about. Just excited to get into it and excited to get some new players on our squad. And as far as news around the league goes, like I said, this is not going to be a long episode since we don't have our host Jaden. But on top of that, I mean, it's just a quiet time for NFL fans. In our division, the Broncos traded for Zach Wilson, which is certainly news, and he could be their quarterback next year, depending on how this entire process goes with the draft, and if they are able to make the trades for the guy they like, if they do need to trade in that top 4 to get a top 4 guy, or if they are okay with settling for a Penix or a Bo Nix. If they're okay with that, then Zach Wilson probably won't be starting. But, anything can happen on draft day, and there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. And so Zach Wilson being in the division is great because he's not good at all. So that's news, and I'm happy about it, But honestly, that is it. That is all we got for the TPT Chiefs Football Podcast. Not a lot of Chiefs, but I'm sure after the draft next week, we're going to have a field day with these podcasts. We'll be back, me and Jaden both. Might even have some special guests. Until then, y'all take care and go Chiefs.